Hi everyone, I am Adam Weezer. I am an associate writer here at CIG, and this is another episode of 10 for the Writers. Thanks to all the subscribers for being able to make this show possible. It's always a lot of fun to come on here, be able to answer your questions. And here to join me today is...
I'm Sherry Heiberg. I am the archivist here at Cloud Imperium Games. I'd like to reiterate thanks to the subscribers for making this all possible. You guys are awesome. And so now that let's get right into that. All right. So the first question we have is from Bjorn Schwartz, also known as Magnificus. And the question is, with the name similarity to Wikipedia, how much user-generated content will be allowed and how much will be curated? Is there special art stuff planned, like the famous photo bits with the Xi'an Scout or Retaliator photos? Well, I personally want a lot of user-generated content once the game comes online. See, in my vision, users would be able to submit articles about their accomplishments in the game or observations they've made in the game for approval. And once they meet certain content standards, we'd be able to get them published. Mainly, I'm going with this because the game is going to be so huge that it'll be impossible to keep everything perfectly curated without the support of you, the subscribers and backers of Star Citizen, and the players. And about the art question, I haven't confirmed this yet, just laying that out there, but I want official art from the inside of the company to be in the Galactapedia. You know, like a real encyclopedia. I mean, it will be a real encyclopedia, just online. And I'd also really like to accept user-submitted art. Personally, I would love to see more art of Korathal's Last Stand, just so you know. And I would really also like to see images from the Orion colony before the Vanduul attacked. Just laying that out there.
If there's any entrepreneurial, artistically minded backers out there,
right.
Sherry has a dream that she's looking to get fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So now we'll go on to one from Dargon. Dargon asks, when writing and scripting dialogues, how do you deal with the possibility that in 2945 humans will be using a bit different language?
Oof.
And yeah, it's 930 years into the future, we know things are going to be very different. If you look back at what English was 930 years before right now, I'm not sure how many conversations we could really have that would really be understood. And that's our concern, is we need to make a game that can be understood by everybody. And we, obviously English is the main language of the game, but we also have people who are playing the game who it's their second, third language. So we need to make sure that when we are writing stuff that people will be able to understand it right now, even though we understand that the world would be drastically different at that time. So from our perspective, we try to use flavor language when the lore requires it. Think, technology like mobiGlas, ship components, stuff like that. Money, like creds, it being creds instead of dollars or anything like that. The dialogue of Cathcart is distinct, and that was a conscious choice on our part because Cathcart is a lawless system and it has a different history than the UEE, and that was just a way for us to be able to distinguish that and be able to add that little flavor. So if you are on a planet somewhere and be able to hear that, it'll give you a hint to their background. As exciting as it can be, I know Clockwork Orange and Blade Runner both use kind of like mutated language to give a sense of the future and how it's changed and why it changed. To do it on that massive level throughout the game would be extremely difficult, especially since first the accessibility issue, and second there's also alien races and their dialects that I think would take precedence in having to figure out.
I mean, we don't want the humans in the game to sound like we're reading the Canterbury Tales today. That is not the goal.
We want you guys to be able to enjoy it and not want to bang your head against the wall because we decided to go off and create our own language. But yeah.
That's the idea. All right. Vic, also known as Eintier, hopefully I'm saying that right, asks the question, how do you deal with published textual inaccuracies? Dates that don't match up or something that's just impossible given other lore? Is there a certain priority of what is more important to keep in canon? It is absolutely a priority of what's more important to keep. This is a very well-timed question because just last week we noticed, Adam particularly noticed, that there were some published textual inaccuracies concerning a system of planets that contradicted the recorded lore that we have behind the scenes. And we had to engage in a discussion, amongst all of us to determine what would be the right one to keep. In this instance, we decided that it would be better to keep with the internal lore because it was an astrophysicist helped develop this. And so we want things to be just as accurate as they possibly can be for you. And so we went with this choice. And this is the kind of process that we expect to continually engage in the future if we spot any more of these inaccuracies again. And in my vision again, I would like for the Galactapedia to be considered the final word once it is published. And I have a few ideas on how this will play out. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, there's so much lore out there. Part of, obviously that's one of the main reasons she's here, and that's a thing I do a lot too, is just, scour what we have internally and what we've published to all you subscribers and backers, so that we understand what we have and where we're going and everything like that. And it's a task, and sometimes things, slip through the cracks, and that's part of the reason why we're here. We're part of the lore team, is to help catch those and to make sure we do have a process to solve that problem for when the game does go live and the Galactapedia goes live. So next question is from Far Seeker. I have heard that the overall story arc of the UEE in the PU will be inspired by the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Will the PU progress to a state closer to the 3rd century AD, a time of unrest and civil war, but ultimately resulted in stability for several decades? Or the early to mid 5th century AD, when the Western Roman Empire was basically beyond saving? So,
That's a great question.
It is a great question, and it's why I chose it. I love Roman history, and I love that this game is inspired by Roman history. That being said, the game is not a mirror for Roman history.
No.
If it was, it would be pretty anticlimactic because we would all know kind of where this would be going. But the game does have elements. The Roman Empire did inspire different, systematic problems that did come up. In the reference here to the 3rd century, that was Diocletian basically ended up dividing the empire, and there is a bit of an internal discussion within our universe whether Seoul should stay the capital of the UEE or whether Terra supporters, whether it should be moved there, a more progressive capital. So again, that is inspired by the Roman Empire, but it's definitely not determined yet in our game. The 5th century was the Roman Empire really came to a close with the barbarian and Vandal raids of the empire. And we do have the Vandal that are consistently pushing into UE territory. So that's something that we also have worked into the game. Again, it's there's nothing saying that they're going to take over. To be quite honest, that's what the backers and the players are here to do, is to help write the history of the UEE and maybe try to steer it on a different course than was set by the Roman Empire. So good question, good inspiration, but it's we're not opening the timeline and planning stuff out bit by bit. We are actually using it to kind of like set up the system, set up the parameters, and then hopefully creating a sandbox that'll be a lot of fun for you guys to go in and play in and have some fun affecting.
Affect history. Anyway, so the next question comes from Aragorn BH. Someone asked a similar question to the second half, so I'll be covering that later. But firstly, you asked, have you already determined what would be required for a player to be entered into the Galactapedia? For example, will the discovery of a new jump point, planet, or animal species get someone in? What about when a player kills or captures an infamous pirate? How famous would that pirate have to be? Now, this is a complex question because the determination of whether something is super influential is kind of fuzzy. It's like relevance, and it's something that comes up again and again on Wikipedia. There's so many arguments about that's not relevant. No, that is relevant. That it sometimes gets articles taken down. But in simple terms, yes, the discovery of a jump point, planet, or an animal would absolutely merit entry in the Galactapedia. Important discoveries, that kind of thing. That's definitely worth recording. As far as the pirate question is concerned, the pirate would have to be pretty famous. I mean, if you take down like a minor pirate, someone who hasn't made much waves, that's definitely an interesting thing for your character to do. But if the pirate isn't well known, then I would say that it most likely wouldn't be recorded. But again, this is just there's so many other factors that come into play, like how many systems has that pirate raided? Have they raided any systems? How many people have they attacked? Like, I guess it's the difference between taking down a criminal who's shoplifting and someone on the FBI's top 40 most wanted list.
Yeah, and I know from a pirate perspective, and even when the lore builder articles were done, last year or the year before, there was a request for people to submit ideas for different pirate organizations, and one of the parameters for that was to realize the context and realize how big the empire is, and that when you are creating your own pirate character or organization, most likely you won't be able to have a grip over the entire empire, because if that happens,
so much.
the weight of the verse would literally come down upon you. So at this point, they're probably the pirate system is still something that you're right. There's not going to be many like big dogs and out there for you to go hunt down. Not to say that someday we won't create one, and that if we do that, if something happens with that, we might be able to get you in there. But
right.
As of right now, it's still something that it would heavily depend upon the circumstance. That for sure.
Absolutely, and just like anything in history, you need to consider how it impacts everybody else, I suppose.
That was a good thing to consider.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go on.
All right, next one. Consider history, folks. Gundam asked, does the UEE have a system or area where it does its military testing? If so, is it something along the lines of Area 51, where it's an open, secret / restricted area? Or is it something completely unknown to the general public? And is there a name for a place that you can share other than redacted? There is, but I'm going to hold off for a second. So we do have a lot of systems planned out. We do have a lot of areas designated specifically for the military. Some of them you know about, some of them you will know about, some of them you might not know about. Some are going to be accessible. You can go visit and hang out and do certain things there, and some you may not get the warmest welcome if you end up trying to land or get close to that system. That said, that's all there. That is, some of that's redacted. There is the moon of Odin 2 called Vili, which is a known testing ground for experimental weapons. Technically, in the lore of the verse, Bearing Applied Technologies does a lot of testing there. And for those who are unfamiliar with that, go check it out. There's a really good Galactic Guide post about it. But in essence, it's the verse's worst kept secret that this division of Bearing basically does super secret, super awesome military weapons and testing and stuff like that. So even though it's technically a private company, it's pretty much well known that they're doing stuff to advance warfare, to advance kind of military components. Again, that's on Vili, the moon of Odin 2. You can land there at a place called Raleigh Station. You're not going to get too far because of the secrecy that's surrounding it. So you could say it's, in essence, an area like Area 51, where there's a knowledge that it's out there. I'm sure there's plenty of rumors as to what exactly is being done there. You could maybe drive up to the gate, but you definitely won't be invited in, and there won't be a lot of civilian activity there. So if you do have an interest in that aspect of the gameplay, I would suggest that maybe you go hang out there, or kind of like look into that a little bit.
Excellent idea. Definitely knock on the door of the secret military base.
Yep. Just say hi.
Just say hi.
Here for a tour.
Yeah.
Just like our studios.
You're cool.
Come knock the door,
Just
ring the doorbell.
Tell them you're cool, and they'll let you in.
Totally
Always
not
works.
a pirate.
All right, so the next question comes from Swordfish L. Spear. Hello, how will the Galactapedia and the galaxy map be updated as player and presumably NPC discoveries of new systems, planets, and other items of interest are made public? And this is with public as in sold / given to an official UEE information bureau. Well, what I want, and what hasn't been implemented yet, which I'm going to emphasize, is that the game will have a behind-the-scenes mechanism way of recording discoveries. This won't lead to immediate publication on the Galactapedia, of course. This will just be behind the scenes, like a record that's kept, so that we know who discovered it, who has been to the location, et cetera, et cetera. So we have these internal records to compare to when you, as the player, report the discovery. The second part of this question is that when you make new discoveries like this and items of interest pop up, is that you, the player, should have the choice whether or not to report it. I want this because what if you are coming back to pirates? What if you're playing the game as a pirate? What if you discover a jump point and no one else has discovered it yet? How strategically valuable would that be to keep that jump point to yourself and to fight people off to make sure that no one can discover this jump point but you? And if we have it so that it automatically publishes in the Galactapedia that you have discovered this jump point, well, there's no secrecy anymore, so why bother to defend the point? Why do anything?
Yeah.
So I feel like that makes a lot of sense as far as like...
A very interesting kind of like strategic ability, whether you're a corporation that's trying to get a better trading route. And there are plenty of jump points out there that that'll be up for grabs and may be beneficial to players out there. So,
yes,
I think that's a very good point.
Yeah, the short answer to the question is that if you make a new discovery, you will need to report it in order for it to be recorded in the Galactapedia, for you to get the recognition. You also asked a little bit about certain triggers happening in the game, like NPC revealed things, and that information, on the other hand, would be published if an NPC discovers something.
Yeah.
You know, just like in-game planned events. I mean, this is all my personal vision. This is what I want to happen. And I think that this is the best route for the players and the characters that they want to be.
Very cool.
Yes.
Good. All right, and now we're going on to a question from Nostromo 1977.
Oh, very good.
Hi, writers. With the introduction of medical ships, Hope-class Hospital and Cutlass Red, has CIG ever considered creating lore for principle of non-interference with medical services in times of war, similar to the Medical Neutrality Protection Act of the Geneva Convention? Yeah, we've gotten plenty of questions about this kind of element of the game and there being kind of like medical rescue and stuff like that, and it is really interesting. And from a lore perspective, it makes a lot of sense that there would be some sort of treaty that the UEE would have kind of implemented or kind of like codified, you know, this idea, because it does seem to be, you know, an important one. That said, much like in the real world, just because we maybe create this in lore doesn't mean that it's going to function in the game. There are plenty of examples, even unfortunately recently, of the Geneva Convention being, you know, this act in the Geneva Convention not quite working out so well with various civil wars around the world. So I don't think the Van Duel would ever agree to that. No. I doubt that a lot of lawless systems would also probably not care. There's probably other players and even other pirates that in UE territory would, you know, target that for their own means. So though it's an interesting idea, I wouldn't be surprised if something shows up. I don't think it would ever be like a game rule or a game mechanic. It may just be more of a moral compass that'll be there, that if we create this in the lore, then you can understand, you can basically help define your character better by having them in that situation and then making the choice of whether do they help, do they protect, do they just let it go, do they attack? I think it's an important aspect of the game, but again, I don't think it'll ever be quite a game rule where if you do attack it, you know, it automatically means something bad's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't want to infringe on the way you want to develop your character. This game is all about how you build the universe. Yeah. Yeah. But my final question comes from Steve Hunter, also known as Steve 2001. And Steve asks, can you make a guesstimate as to how large you see the Galactapedia being by the time we finally launch? We know that it will be large, but just how huge do you see it becoming? Big, large, and huge is the answer. But no, I can't give you an estimate right now, but I can tell you that we're having a kickoff meeting with Turbulent to put together a plan of action for the Galactapedia this week. Very exciting. I'm very pleased that we're at this step. There's a lot of stuff that I want to tell you but can't. But I would like to also add that the great thing about publishing this online is that we essentially have an infinite space to develop the Galactapedia in, which is not to say that it will be infinite, because that's a complex number that, you know, we can't reach the boundaries of infinity.
It's a philosophical thing.
It's a philosophical thing. Yeah. It's a mathematical concept that maybe we don't quite understand. But anyway, yes, I see it becoming very big. Like, as players affect the universe, as we reveal more lore, as more of it's expanded, I just see it growing and growing and growing. And we will need that growth.
Yes, yeah, again, our internal documentation is massive, even from a lore perspective, and that's just stuff we've created to get us to where we are right now. There's a lot of places still to come, and there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen and be added once you guys get to be, a part of the PU. So, yeah, preparing the baseline for that is, I think doing that will be a good way to kind of like start to judge exactly what we're going to be dealing with. So,
yes.
Definitely more to come once. Once tomorrow's done.
Yes.
Yeah. One final question. This one is from Kilrathy Knights. Hi guys. How is writing of the Star Citizen lore constrained by the known game mechanics? Yeah, this is it's a balancing act, and it's sometimes to be quite honest, lore is not so much constrained by the known game mechanics, but more often by the unknown game mechanics. It's the stuff, the elements of ships or weapons or worlds that we're still in the process of getting final approval on. So when moments like that come, we need to avoid getting too ultra specific on technical issues and in that regards. From a lore perspective, what it makes us do is probably focus less on those specifics and maybe more on the emotional story or the emotional specifics, which from a storytelling perspective is actually helpful. It makes you kind of like realize, what is this really about emotionally? What can we kind of tap it into? But it does also cut both ways, because for example, with the recent Genesis Starliner sale, if you look at the flight board, all the places you see where you might have trips coming into, we all approved the landing zones that would be on that board, because from a lore perspective, you may be able to fly a Starliner into, let's say, the Hades system, but there's no place for you to land there from a lore perspective, because it is a pirate world and it is a dead world to a certain degree and stuff like that. Jared made a really great funny card about Hades. Why would you ever go there? And it's an Easter egg that you can find on the flight board if you search for it, if it's there at the right time. And it was a fun little joke at the beginning, but from a lore perspective, we had to come in and be like, oh, we need to do something else with this, because this type of company would not really fly or probably would not want to fly into this system. So there's definitely other stations like the Raleigh station from on the moon of Odin 2 I mentioned earlier. That's also a place where a commercial kind of like Starliner is not gonna go anyways. So from a lore perspective also, it's kind of like us being able to go in and be like, well, the mechanics of the game doesn't make sense for that to head there because of all these reasons we built in. So again, it's a balancing act. It's actually a good thing too, because what it does do is that it promotes in-depth discussions between departments, whether it's art or whether it's design. They come to us asking certain things, and we go to them to be able to get clarification. So I think that makes for a good, healthy creative process all around.
Yeah. And I feel like working with constraints can really, really help you narrow down what it is you finally want to do. Like if you're given just like, here, do whatever you want in this space, you can get choice paralysis and not be able to develop your idea. But since we have these conversations, we can have these rules that we can write by. And that's super, super helpful.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So, well, thank you all for tuning in and sticking through another 10 for the Writers. I'm Adam Weezer.
I'm Sherry Heiberg.
And we'd like to thank all the subscribers and backers and the people out there following in the community. Thank you so much for your support and for being a part of this. It's been a lot of fun. And Dave and Will should be back very soon from the Squadron 42 shoot. I'm sure they'll be excited to sit down, tell you what they've been doing. They're the real engines of the lore team. We are just here to kind of like project the spirit of what we're doing.
We're valuable too.
We are valuable. They
feel good about yourself.
I do. Thanks guys for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching 10 for the Chairman. If you guys would like to see more episodes, go here. If you guys would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel and always keep up to date with all our video content, go here. And if you guys would like to watch episodes of Around the Verse, go here please. And I will see you in the verse.